right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you guys are doing well today. Today I wanted to walk you through video 9 in our JMRI series, where we discuss kind of some final things you have to do before you can run your first train using schedules. All right, so I've got a little list of things here that we want to make sure we complete. You can think of it as a checklist, and I'm going to kind of show you where to find these things so you also can do these things when you're using schedules. And this is just to help make it where when you build your first train, hopefully you won't have too many errors or things that seem out of place that you have to fix. And that will make it much more user-friendly for yourself and much more enjoyable when it actually comes time to start running trains. So here we go. First thing that you want to do before building a train when using schedules is you want to make sure that you have built schedules for all of your spurs. So you're going to go to Tools, Operations Pro, you'll go to Locations. Once you look at your locations, in our case, we only currently have one place with spurs, that's Localville, so we'll go to Localville. And you pull up all of your spurs, and you want to make sure that all of your spurs have a schedule. So for us, we have a schedule for each one of these. In the previous video, we made just the schedule for Box Inc., but now I've completed schedules for all the other tracks as well. So you want to make sure all of that is done before you are ready to build your first train. Now, the second thing, you need to make sure that you have gone into each spur and you have removed the car load restrictions up here on the top right. So if you also go back and watch one of our previous videos, you'll see that we built in car load restrictions for when we are not using schedules, when you're just using empty and loads. When you're going to use a schedule, you don't need that anymore. So you want to go through and delete those. Later, we might come back and add them. I'll talk more about that in just a minute, but initially you just want to get those out of the way. So we're going to delete those for every spur. So when it says, actually it should have a section that says restrictions, and in my case it doesn't. That's because I have successfully deleted all of my restrictions. All right, third thing, you want to either build new restrictions based on your new car loads, either coming in or going out, or you want to use what's called track destinations, or you can use neither of these. So currently I have it set up to use neither, but let me show you how to do both. So if we go to Grain Inc., for example, and I look at the schedule for Grain Inc. Only receives empty cars, and then it can ship any of these 5 things, which is fantastic. So that means that any car that's going to come to this track is only going to come in empty. So what you can do is go back to that track, and where it says accepts all loads, you can go accept only, and you can set it to accept only hopper grain and empty. You'll notice this is my custom empty, not the default empty. And this will make it where no car will ever come to this track unless it has a load of empty. And that makes sense because the schedule is only going to accept cars with loads of empty. Now, if you don't use this tool, because remember, you don't have to, you will still never get a car here unless the schedule calls for it. And so then it's going to have that load anyways. So technically you don't really need this, but it is kind of like a fail-safe mechanism. So if you really like to have that extra security so things go exactly as planned, you want to make sure you add this. Now, option 2, if you don't want that, is you can go to the yard, not the spur, but go to the yard that holds the cars that serve those spurs. So for us, that's the interchange yard. We're going to go to classification interchange, and we're going to go to track 2 local, because this is where all cars bound for Localville are first held. You can go here, and up in the top left, it has a tools button. You can go there and click on track destinations. So now you get this, and you can say accept only. And then you can say this track only accepts cars with a final destination, and then you click Localville because this track only serves cars going to Localville. So now if you use that functionality, this track is only going to accept cars that are going to Localville. It's not going to accept cars that are going anywhere else. So that's option 2 to create some fail-safes. Once again, you don't technically have to have it. I'm going to turn it off, and we're going to get out of there. Okay, that's the third thing that you want to make sure is done before you start building any trains. Now let's talk about the fourth thing. So the fourth thing is you want to go and change car loads for all cars on spurs to what it will be when they get picked up. So we're going to go back to Localville, and we're going to click on our spur, so Box Inc. And up in the top left, you can go to Tools. You can click on Show Cars. and pull this list over. This shows you all the cars that are currently on that spur. So I have changed their loads. You do this by using the set button, and it brings up this menu. So load is right here. You change their load to whatever it will be when they get picked up. Now, since you're starting it this way, you can technically choose whatever you want, even if it's not on the schedule. But we're going to stick to electronics for this one. So I'm going to hit save, and you can see the other one is empty. You're going to go do that for every one of your spurs. And I have done that for all of the spurs, but that's another thing that you want to make sure is that you have determined the car loads that are going to be picked up. All right. That's just to make sure you don't get any crazy car movements. And the fifth thing is you want to go and change car loads and final destinations for any cars that are going to get picked up by your train in the yard and shipped over to Localville in our case. So I'm going to go back to the interchange yard. I'm going to go to classification interchange. I'm going to click on track 2 local because that's where we're going to pick up cars to go to the town. I'm going to go to tools and same thing. I'm going to go to show cars. Now this time you can see I've already done this. I've already chosen their load. So these are loads that will be accepted by the schedule. And then I have chosen their final destination and track. So it just lists as destination, but if you click on a car, if you click set on a car, you can see right here, final destination and track. I've chosen the town and the track that it's going to. Technically, you can choose whatever load you want. And since you have forced it to go to this track, you can choose whatever load you want and it will still go to that track. And then it will, reset and be functional after that. So the point is though, the reason we're doing this, we're trying to eliminate weird movements or abandoned cars or anything that wouldn't make sense. And we're trying to make sure that when we build the train the first time, it's going to be what we want. Okay, now in the future, once you've run the train a few times, you don't have to do this anymore because when you build a train out of staging, for example, it's going to go ahead and choose final destinations for all those cars, and you're not going to have to do it manually. This is just before you build your first train. That's why it's so important. All right, and then the sixth thing is you're going to go ahead and go to your train. You're going to press build, and then you're going to print the switch list. And you're going to read your switch list. So we're going to go to tools. We're going to go to trains. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go ahead and build the local. We're going to hit print. So notice it's pulling 20 cars. It has a maximum of 40 that it could pull. So we're going to hit print. And I'm going to choose to save this as a PDF. I'm going to call it local. I already have one with that name, so I'm just going to overwrite it. And then what you're going to do is you're not going to hit anything else. You're not going to hit move. You're not going to hit terminate. You're going to leave this alone. You're just going to minimize. And you're going to go look at your local file. All right, so this is your switch list. So what you want to look for are any movements that just don't make sense. So here we see we're picking up the engine. At the end, we see we're setting the engine out. That's good. So that movement is good. We see that we have, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 pickups. So all 9 of these pickups are supposed to go to town. So we want to make sure that there are 9 set outs. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Good. Okay. And then here we have these pickups. All right. And then we're going to be setting these out here. Now, you want to check the tracks that you're setting out to over on the right to make sure that it's going to the correct track. So when the local train picks up cars, in my case, it can only set out on 2 tracks. It can set on the outbound track, or it can set out on track 3, which goes to the Canadian National. Those are the only options. So if I got a car that was going to any other track in the yard, I know that I would need to mess with the yard track restrictions, which we talked about in a previous video. Another thing that happened, I had to reprint this switch list probably 4 or 5 times, just because I was going through the checklist that I was talking about here, our 6 steps. And sure enough, if I didn't do all 6 steps, there was at least 1 or 2 cars doing something weird. And I had to go back and reset the train. So here's what you do if you don't like your switch list. You close it out. You go back to your trains. And if you don't like that switch list, you hit edit. It's going to bring up the train menu. You hit reset. And then voila, your train's reset. You hit save. And now you should see train reset right here. So now you can build a new switch list. Notice this time it only built 12 cars. Oh, wow. All right. And then I'm going to save this as local. So we're going to overwrite the old one because I don't need it anymore since I reset the train. And I'm going to pull it up one more time. So here we see we have much less car movement. It only picked up 12 this time instead of 20. That's because of that randomness that we programmed in there. We only have 6 pickups, 6 setouts, looks like 6 more pickups, and then 6 setouts plus our locomotives. That makes sense. And they are definitely not necessarily the same pickups as last time. So yeah, that worked out pretty well. I think what we'll do is I will probably save this switch list because it looks good. I think what we'll do is when we get ready to have our operating session, we'll go ahead and run this train first. I think that'll be pretty fun. I am going to have a later video where we talk about how to make these switch lists look a lot nicer, since that's kind of an advanced feature. So you'll see that in a later video, so stay tuned. But thank you guys for watching today. Make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And leave a comment, especially if you felt like this was helpful. So appreciate it very much, and look forward to hanging out again soon. All right, see you later.